My name is Marcus Cole, and for 6 months I lived with a label that crushed me more than any enemy fire ever could. Coward. I'm sitting here in my small apartment in Norfolk, Virginia, watching the rain streak down the window, and I can still feel the weight of those stares, the disgust in their eyes, the whispers that followed me everywhere I went. My hands shake as I hold this cup of cold coffee, not from fear anymore, but from the memory of what they took from me. It was March 2023, and I was a combat photographer with the 82nd Airborne Division. I'd been deployed 3 times before, capturing moments that would later be used for military records, historical documentation, and sometimes, unfortunately, memorial services. My camera was my weapon, my lens was my scope, and truth was my ammunition. We were stationed at a forward operating base in a classified location, supporting Allied forces during a critical operation. The days were long, hot, and tense. Sand got into everything: our food, our gear, our lungs. My unit consisted of 12 men led by Captain David Harrison, a career officer with 20 years of service. Harrison was old-school military, rigid by the book, and he never quite understood why the Army needed photographers playing soldier, as he once put it to my face. Then there was Sergeant Jake Mitchell, my closest friend in the unit. Jake was from a small town in Tennessee, spoke with a thick drawl and could make anyone laugh even in the worst situations. He trusted me completely, and that trust would later become a curse for both of us. The day everything changed was April 14th. The temperature was already hitting 95 degrees by 900 hours, and we'd received intelligence about enemy movement in a nearby village. Our mission was reconnaissance. Get in, gather information, get out. I checked my equipment that morning like I always did. 2 camera bodies, multiple lenses, extra memory cards, batteries. My rifle was clean and ready, though I rarely needed it. We reached the village around noon. It appeared abandoned, but that meant nothing. Harrison ordered us to dismount and proceed on foot, maintaining tight formation. I had my camera ready, capturing our approach. The crunch of boots on sand, the way the heat created waves in the air. These were the moments that mattered, not just the action but the tension before it. That's when it happened. The explosion was deafening. The ground erupted 50 feet to our left. IED. We hit the ground immediately, training overriding panic. Enemy rounds started hitting around us, that distinctive snap that tells you death just missed you by inches. I did what I was trained to do. I started shooting, with my camera. My hands moved automatically, capturing the chaos. The muzzle flashes from our position, the dust clouds from impacts. But then I saw something through my lens that made my blood run cold. 2 enemy fighters were moving along a rooftop, flanking us, trying to get behind where Sergeant Mitchell and 2 other soldiers had taken cover. From where Harrison was positioned, he couldn't see them. "Captain," I shouted. "Rooftop, 2 o'clock. They're flanking Mitchell's position." Harrison turned to me, his face red with fury. "Cole, get your head down and stop with that damn camera." "Sir, I can see." "That's an order, Specialist." I had a split-second decision to make. Continue taking photos as ordered, or drop my camera and engage the threat I'd identified. In that moment, my training as a combat photographer overrode everything else. I was documenting what I was seeing, including the threat that nobody else had noticed. My camera captured those 2 fighters, their weapons, their exact position. But I should have grabbed my rifle. The ambush happened exactly as I'd feared. The 2 fighters opened fire on Mitchell's position. When the smoke cleared minutes later, Sergeant Jake Mitchell was dead, along with Private First Class Tommy Rodriguez. The silence after a firefight is worse than the noise during it. I sat there in the dirt, my camera still in my hands, and watched as they covered Jake's body with a poncho. Harrison approached me, his face twisted with rage and grief. "You saw them," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You saw those fighters and you did nothing. You just sat there with your camera while Mitchell died." "Sir, I tried to tell you." "You tried. You tried." He grabbed my vest. "You're a soldier first, Cole. You could have engaged, but you chose to hide behind that camera like the coward you are." The word hit me like a physical blow. Coward. Within hours, the story had spread throughout the base. Marcus Cole, the combat photographer who watched his brothers die through a lens instead of helping them. Nobody wanted to hear my side. All they saw was the camera in my hands and 2 dead soldiers. The formal investigation began the next day. I was relieved of duty and confined to base. My camera and all my memory cards were confiscated as evidence. Harrison's report was damning. He claimed I'd frozen under fire, refused to engage the enemy, and that my negligence had directly contributed to the deaths. The investigator, Major Peterson, was professional but cold. Specialist Cole, did you have a clear line of sight to the enemy combatants? Yes, sir. And you were armed with a service rifle? Yes, sir. But instead of engaging the threat, you continued taking photographs. When he put it like that, it sounded indefensible. I had no way to explain that my brain had been wired to document, not engage. The hearing lasted 3 days. The looks I got from other soldiers were worse than any punishment. Disgust, contempt, anger. Someone leaked the story to the media. Army photographer accused of cowardice in combat, read one headline. My face was everywhere, always with that word attached to it, coward. My family saw the stories. My mother called, crying. My father, a Vietnam veteran, didn't call at all. That silence hurt more than anything. I was given a choice. Accept to transfer stateside to a non-combat position or face a potential court-martial. I took the transfer to Norfolk, to a desk job at a naval administrative office. I processed paperwork, filed reports, and tried to become invisible. Jake's funeral happened without me. His family made it clear I wasn't welcome. Rodriguez's family did the same. The official investigation closed in September. Insufficient evidence to substantiate charges, the final report stated, but the damage was done. My camera equipment was returned, except the memory cards. Those, they said, had been lost during evidence transfer. The only proof of what I'd actually seen that day gone. I stopped going out, stopped talking to people. My apartment became my prison. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jake's face. I started drinking. Nothing heavy, but enough to dull the edges of constant pain. Enough to sleep without dreaming. It was November, 7 months after that terrible day, when I got a call from an unknown number. Specialist Cole, my name is Elena Rodriguez. I'm Tommy Rodriguez's sister. I need to meet with you. It's about my brother, about what really happened that day. The investigation is closed. I know, but I found something that changes everything. We met at a coffee shop in Virginia Beach the next morning. Eleanor slid a small package across the table. Inside was a memory card. Tommy used to send stuff home, Elena explained. This was in the last package he sent 3 days before he died. The label says, Marcus's camera backup, April 14th. Did you give this to my brother? My mind raced back. Tommy had asked if he could borrow a memory card to back up some personal photos that morning. I'd given him one of my spares. Did Tommy have a camera? I asked. He always carried a small point and shoot. My hands were shaking as I inserted the card into her laptop. There were files from during the mission. Tommy must have been shooting during the chaos, and his camera had been saving to my backup card instead of his own. And then I saw it, frame after frame of the rooftop. The 2 enemy fighters I'd seen, their weapons, their positions, the exact moment they'd opened fire on Jake's position. Everything I'd tried to tell Harrison about, captured from a second perspective. The final photos showed me, visible in the background, my camera trained on that rooftop. The timestamps proved I'd been photographing those fighters before they'd opened fire. Evidence that I hadn't frozen, that I hadn't been a coward. I looked up at Elena, tears streaming down my face. This proves everything, I said. Elena had already made backups, 3 different drives, plus cloud storage. I know what happened to your original memory cards, she said. She leaned forward. Tommy sent me letters. In his last one, dated April 12th, he mentioned tensions in the unit. He said Captain Harrison had been making comments about combat photographers being dead weight, and that you'd had several confrontations with him about mission documentation. My stomach tightened. Harrison never liked me, but I thought it was just personality differences. Tommy thought it was more than that. He wrote that Harrison had been involved in an incident during his previous deployment, something that got covered up. He said you'd been taking photos of things that some people would rather stay buried. I thought back to the weeks before the mission. There had been one incident. About 2 weeks before the attack, I was photographing a supply distribution. Harrison was there with a local contractor. I caught them on camera, having what looked like a heated argument. Did you report it? No. It wasn't my job to investigate supply issues. I just documented what I saw and filed the photos with my daily reports. Elena pulled out another envelope. After Tommy died, I started asking questions. I found out there's been an ongoing investigation into supply chain irregularities at your forward operating base. Equipment and supplies going missing, money disappearing. The pieces started fitting together in a way that made my blood run cold. You think Harrison was involved? I think, if your photographs from that day and all the days leading up to it had been properly examined, they might have shown something Harrison didn't want anyone to see. Could it be that simple? That my memory cards hadn't been lost but deliberately destroyed? That Harrison's report wasn't just about the firefight, but about discrediting me before anyone could look too closely at my documentation? We need to take this to someone outside the normal chain of command, I said. I was thinking the same thing, but who? There's a military journalist I worked with during my second deployment, Captain Sarah Chen. She's based at the Pentagon now, works for the Army Times. She's fair, thorough, and she owes me a favor. We spent the next hour going through every file on the memory card. Tommy's photographs provided a complete secondary record of that day's mission. But it was the sequence from the firefight that was most damning to Harrison's version of events. 11:47:23, first explosion, IED. 11:47:31, unit taking cover. 11:47:45, me photographing toward the rooftop where the two fighters were visible. 11:48:03, me shouting toward Harrison. 11:48:15, Harrison gesturing at me dismissively. 11:48:27, two fighters opening fire from rooftop position. 11:48:31, Jake Mitchell's position being hit. This shows you tried to warn them, Eleanor said quietly. Tommy saw what you were doing. I couldn't speak. The vindication I felt was mixed with profound sadness. These photographs proved I wasn't a coward, but they couldn't bring back the two men who'd died. That evening, I called Captain Sarah Chen. She picked up on the third ring. Sarah, it's Marcus Cole. There was a brief pause. Marcus, I hoped you'd call. Are you okay? No, but I have something you need to see. Evidence that changes everything about what happened in April. I explained about Elena, about Tommy's photographs, about the timeline they revealed. Sarah was quiet throughout, typing notes. When I finished, she said, "This is significant, Marcus. If what you're telling me is accurate, this isn't just about clearing your name. This is about false official reports, potential evidence tampering, and possibly command misconduct. I need to see these photographs. When can we meet? I can drive down to Norfolk tomorrow. But Marcus, if I verify this evidence and decide to run with this story, it's going to explode. Your life is going to become very public, very quickly. I understand. I just want the truth out there." I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table, going through the evidence repeatedly, building a timeline, making notes. At 8:30, I drove to meet Sarah. She was already there, sitting in a corner booth. She stood when she saw me, and I was surprised when she gave me a brief hug. "You look terrible, Marcus." We sat down and I walked her through everything. Tommy's photographs, the timeline of the firefight. She took notes constantly, asking sharp questions. After 2 hours, she sat back. "This is substantial, Marcus. Very substantial. With your permission, I want to bring this to my editor and propose a full investigation, but we need to do this right. 2, maybe 3 weeks. How long will that take? We need to be thorough. Harrison will have lawyers. The Army will have public affairs officers trying to control the narrative, and every detail will be scrutinized. I can wait 2 more weeks. I've already waited 7 months. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Marcus, I'm sorry for what happened to you, but we're going to make this right, I promise you." Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah worked tirelessly. She interviewed Elena, verified Tommy's deployment records, and reached out to other soldiers from my unit who hadn't been at the hearing. She also discovered 3 other soldiers from different units at the same base who had filed informal complaints about supply irregularities. None had gone anywhere, but they established a pattern. Meanwhile, I tried to rebuild some semblance of a normal life. I started running again. I cleaned my apartment. I even went to the base medical center and talked to a counselor about PTSD and survivor's guilt. The counselor, Dr. Patricia Mills, was straightforward. "Marcus, even if you're exonerated, even if the truth comes out, you're still going to carry the weight of that day. That's trauma regardless of fault or blame. I know, but at least if the truth comes out, I can grieve properly instead of drowning in shame." Sarah called me with news. "We're publishing tomorrow. Front page of the Army Times website. My editor wanted to give you a heads up. I'm ready." The article published at 0600 the next morning. By 0630, my phone was exploding with messages. By 0700, news vans were parked outside my apartment building. By 0900, the Army had issued a statement saying they were reviewing newly discovered evidence. Captain Harrison was placed on administrative leave. The story went viral. And then, 3 days after publication, I got a call from Jake Mitchell's father. My hand trembled when I saw the name. Robert Mitchell. "Hello? Marcus Cole?" The voice was gruff, weathered. "I owe you an apology. A big one." I sat down hard on my couch. "I read the article," Robert Mitchell continued, his voice cracking. "I saw the photographs. I saw what really happened that day. God help me, son. I blamed you for 7 months for something that wasn't your fault. I told you not to come to my boy's funeral and I was wrong. Mr. Mitchell, Jake talked about you in his letters, said you were a good man, a good soldier. He trusted you, Marcus, and I dishonored his memory by believing you'd let him down. We talked for nearly an hour. Robert told me stories about Jake, about the grief that had consumed him after losing his only son. "Would you be willing to meet with me?" he asked, face to face. "I need to look you in the eye and apologize properly. And I have some of Jake's things I think he'd want you to have." "I'd like that, sir." After we hung up, I sat in my apartment and cried harder than I had in months. The Army's investigation moved quickly. Major Peterson, the same JAG officer who'd conducted my original hearing, was assigned to lead it. His tone was noticeably different. "Specialist Cole, I want to begin by stating that the Army takes allegations of evidence tampering and false reporting very seriously. I've reviewed the photographs, and I have significant concerns about the original investigation's conclusions." The formal interview took place at the Norfolk JAG office. This time I felt like a witness, not a defendant. Peterson was particularly interested in the moments before the firefight. "Can you describe Harrison's exact response when you attempted to alert him to the threat?" "He told me to get my head down and stop with the camera. I tried to explain what I was seeing, but he cut me off and said it was an order." "And your original memory cards, when were you informed they'd been lost?" "September 18th, almost 5 months after the incident." "Did you find that explanation credible?" "At the time, I was too defeated to question it. Now, given what we've learned about the supply situation, I have serious doubts." The investigation expanded rapidly. Soldiers were re-interviewed. Supply manifests were audited. The local contractor was brought in for questioning. Harrison lawyered up immediately. Meanwhile, the media attention intensified. I did a few carefully selected interviews. One CNN reporter asked, "How does it feel to have your name cleared?" I thought carefully. "It doesn't feel like vindication. It feels like I can finally breathe again. But 2 men still died that day. I don't feel victorious. I feel sad for what we all lost." The interview went viral and public opinion shifted dramatically. 3 weeks later, Major Peterson called with an update. "Specialist Cole, I wanted to inform you personally of our preliminary findings. We've uncovered substantial evidence of supply chain irregularities at your forward operating base. Several officers, including Captain Harrison, are under investigation for potential fraud and theft of military property." "Is Harrison involved?" "I can't discuss specifics about ongoing criminal investigations, but I can tell you we've also discovered evidence that your original memory cards were not lost accidentally. We found an email from Harrison requesting that all photographic evidence be secured separately due to classification concerns. There's no record of them arriving at that facility. So he deliberately had them removed from the normal chain of custody. That's what the evidence suggests. For you, your record will be corrected. You'll receive an official apology from the Department of the Army. You'll also be offered the option to return to combat photography or to separate from service with an honorable discharge." I flew to Tennessee the following week to meet with Robert Mitchell. His home was filled with photographs of Jake. Robert met me at the door. We shook hands. Then he pulled me into a tight hug. Inside, Robert pulled out a box of Jake's belongings. He handed me a small leather journal. "Jake kept a diary. I think he'd want you to read what he wrote about you." I found the entries from March and April. Jake's voice came through clearly. March 15th. "Marcus got some great shots today. Captain H still gives him grief, but Marcus takes it in stride. Respect." April 10. "Something's off with the supply situation. Marcus caught H talking with that contractor again. Hope it's nothing." April 14th. "Marcus is doing his pre-mission check. I trust him to document whatever happens today. If something goes wrong, at least the truth will be on film." I had to stop reading. Jake had trusted me, had understood the value of what I did. "He valued you," Linda said softly. "Please don't ever doubt that." Before I left, Robert handed me Jake's dog tags. "He'd want you to have these. You were his brother, Marcus." I drove back to Norfolk that night with Jake's journal and dog tags beside me. The investigation into Harrison took another 2 months. The final report was damning. Harrison had been colluding with a local contractor to inflate supply orders, pocket the difference, and then report shortages. Over 18 months, they'd stolen an estimated $2.3 million, My photographs would have exposed the scheme if they'd been properly examined. That's why they'd had to disappear. Harrison was court-martialed on multiple charges and sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, forfeiture of all benefits, and a dishonorable discharge. The official ceremony took place on a cold December morning at Fort Liberty. Major General Raymond Foster prepared to address a room full of soldiers, officers, and journalists. "Today we are here to right a wrong," General Foster began. 7 months ago, Specialist Marcus Cole was accused of conduct unbecoming a soldier. We now know that investigation was compromised by incomplete evidence and deliberately false reporting. He turned to face me. "Specialist Cole, on behalf of the United States Army, I apologize. You performed your duties with skill and courage. You identified enemy combatants and attempted to warn your command. You did everything right, and we failed you by not seeking the complete truth." He held up a folder. "Your service record has been corrected. Furthermore, for your actions on April 14th, you are hereby awarded the Army Commendation Medal with Valor device." After the ceremony, I told the press, "I'm grateful for the Army's thorough investigation, but I want to be clear, this isn't just my vindication. This is about Jake Mitchell and Tommy Rodriguez, who deserved better from their leadership. That loss weighs on me every day." Elena Rodriguez was standing at the back. "You should have been up there with me," I said. "Tommy's photographs made this possible. Tommy was doing what he loved. He'd be proud that his photographs mattered this much." "What will you do now?" Elena asked. "I think I'm getting out. Not because I'm bitter, but because I realized something. The camera is more powerful than I ever understood. Tommy's photographs brought down a corrupt officer. That's what I want to do. Tell stories, expose truth, use photography to make a difference." After accepting my honorable discharge in March, I moved to Washington, D.C., and enrolled in a master's program in journalism at Georgetown University. I started freelancing as a photographer, focusing on veteran issues. My first major assignment was a photo essay about Gold Star families, those who'd lost loved ones in combat. I photographed their homes, their memorial walls, their private moments of grief. One of those families was the Mitchells. I spent a week with Robert and Linda, documenting their life after loss. Robert had transformed Jake's workshop into a memorial space. "It keeps him close," Robert told me. "When I'm in here, finishing his work, I feel like he's guiding my hands." The photo essay was published in National Geographic and won an award for documentary photography. I received hundreds of messages from families dealing with loss, from veterans struggling with survivors' guilt. I started a long-term project documenting military photographers, the men and women who did the same job I'd done. One of my subjects was Specialist Jennifer Torres, stationed at Fort Campbell. "I know what happened to you," she told me. "Every military photographer knows your story. Does it scare you?" "No, it reminds me how important our work is. Documentation matters. Truth matters. You proved that." 2 years after the ceremony, I was invited to speak at the Defense Information School, where military journalists and photographers are trained. "My name is Marcus Cole, and I was a combat photographer with the 82nd Airborne Division," I began. "I'm here to tell you about the power of what you do." I walked them through my experience, the mission, the accusations, the vindication. I showed them Tommy's photographs. "You'll be asked to put down your cameras," I told them. "But I need you to remember, your photographs are permanent records of history. They're evidence that outlasts memory, that contradicts false narratives, that preserves truth when people try to bury it." One young photographer asked, "Do you regret staying behind the camera that day?" "No. I was doing my job and doing it well. 2 men died, and that's a tragedy I carry every day. But it wasn't my fault. It was because our commander was compromised and failed to act on the intelligence I provided. The camera didn't fail anyone. Leadership did." 3 years after my discharge, I published a book, Through the Lens, Stories of Military Photographers. The book launch was at a veterans center in D.C., and the turnout was overwhelming. During the Q&A, someone asked, "What do you want people to take away from your story?" "I want people to understand that documentation matters, that bearing witness is a form of service. That truth doesn't always come from bullets. Sometimes it comes from a camera capturing moments that someone else wanted to erase." After the event, Elena approached me. "Tommy's parents are here. They flew in from Arizona. They want to meet you." Carlos and Maria Rodriguez wore shirts with Tommy's photograph printed on them. Maria immediately embraced me. "Thank you for honoring our son, for making his photographs matter, for giving his death meaning beyond just another casualty number." Before they left, Maria pressed a small photograph into my hand. Keep our boy with you. Keep telling these stories. Now, 5 years after that terrible day, I wake up each morning and see Jake's dog tags, Tommy's photograph, and my cameras on my desk. 3 reminders of what we fight for, what we lose, and why truth matters. I'm no longer specialist Marcus Cole, combat photographer. I'm just Marcus Cole, documentary photographer and journalist. But the work is the same, capturing truth, preserving evidence, bearing witness. I still have nightmares sometimes about the firefight. I still carry survivor's guilt, but I'm healing through work that matters. Last month, specialist Jennifer Torres emailed me from deployment. She'd encountered a situation where her photographs documented something her command didn't want documented. "I thought of you," she wrote. "I thought about how you kept shooting even when ordered to stop. So I kept shooting too. Thank you for showing us that documentation matters." I'm working on a documentary film about military justice reform, focusing on cases where evidence was mishandled. It's difficult work, often bringing up painful memories, but it's important. Sometimes I think about how Jake and Tommy's deaths weren't meaningless. Their stories reformed evidence handling procedures and continue to influence military policy. That's the power of documentation. That's why I kept shooting that day. That's why I'll continue telling these stories for as long as I can hold a camera. My name is Marcus Cole. I was called a coward. I lost 7 months of my life to a false accusation, but I survived. I fought back with the only weapons I had, truth and evidence. They said I was a coward until they found the film in the camera. That film told a different story, a true story, a story that changed everything. And I'm still telling stories, still capturing truth, still believing that documentation matters even when it costs you everything. Because in the end, truth always matters most.